The flickering light cast long, eerie shadows on the walls. A cold draft sent shivers down my spine. The silence was broken only by the creaking of the old house. It was then that I heard it, a soft, muffled sound coming from the basement. What lurked in the darkness below, fear, primal and consuming, gripped me. It whispered to my deepest fears, amplifying them in the silence. The darkness felt alive, pulsating with unseen terror. I knew that some things are best left undisturbed, yet curiosity, like a siren's call, beckoned me closer.
The air grew heavy as I descended the creaking stairs. Each step was a descent into the unknown, a journey into the heart of fear. The musty smell of decay filled my nostrils, suffocating me with its intensity. I felt eyes watching me, their gaze cold and calculating. Whispers seemed to emanate from the shadows, their voices filled with malice. They spoke of unspeakable horrors, of things that should never be disturbed. I tried to rationalize, to explain away the fear that threatened to consume me, but the whispers persisted, weaving a tapestry of dread around my heart. As my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I noticed a faint glimmer in the distance. It was a small, flickering candle, its flame dancing in the darkness. With each step, the shadows seemed to retreat, their power diminishing in the presence of light. Hope, fragile and uncertain, flickered within me. Perhaps there was a logical explanation for the strange sounds, for the overwhelming sense of dread that had permeated the house. Perhaps it was nothing more than my imagination, fueled by the stories I had heard and the fears I had harbored.
As I approached the candle, I noticed a small wooden table. On it lay a tattered book, its pages yellowed with age. Curiosity overcame my fear, and I reached out to touch it. But as my fingers brushed against the worn leather, the candle flickered once and went out, plunging me into darkness once more. Panic surged through me. I fumbled for my lighter, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The shadows seemed to press in closer, suffocating me with their presence. Finally, I managed to ignite the lighter, its flame casting a small circle of light in the overwhelming darkness.
Section 5, The Unseen Terror.
The book was gone. I frantically searched the table and the surrounding area, but it had vanished without a trace. It was then that I realized that I was not alone. A cold breath caressed the back of my neck, sending shivers down my spine.
I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest, but there was nothing there. The darkness seemed to pulsate with unseen energy, a malevolent presence that sent chills to my very core. I knew then that I had stumbled upon something ancient and evil, something that should never have been disturbed. Section 6, The Haunting Melody.
A haunting melody, faint and ethereal, drifted through the air. It seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, weaving its way through the darkness and wrapping around me like a shroud. The notes were melancholic, filled with a deep and abiding sorrow that chilled me to the bone.
I had heard tales of cursed melodies, of songs that could drive men mad with grief and despair. Legends spoke of spirits trapped between worlds, their anguish echoing through the ages in the form of music. Was this one such melody, a haunting reminder of a tragedy long past? Section 7, The Uninvited Guest.
As the music reached its crescendo, the air seemed to thicken and the room grew colder. The haunting melody echoed through the empty halls, each note reverberating with an eerie resonance that sent shivers down my spine. I felt a presence behind me, an unsettling sensation that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. It was as if the very shadows had come to life, creeping closer with each passing second. It was not a physical sensation, but rather an overwhelming awareness of another being. The air around me seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, a dark force that was both intangible and undeniable. But rather an overwhelming awareness of another being. The room seemed to close in on me, the walls pressing in as if to suffocate me with their oppressive presence. Terror, cold and paralyzing, gripped me in its icy embrace. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the fear that coursed through my veins. I dared not turn around, fearing what I might see. The thought of facing whatever lurked behind me was too much to bear, and so I stood frozen, a prisoner of my own fear.
The air grew heavy, thick with the stench of decay. It was a putrid smell, like rotting flesh and damp earth, that filled my nostrils and made me gag, and the weight of unseen eyes upon me. I could feel their gaze, cold and unrelenting, piercing through the darkness and into my very soul. I could feel its gaze boring into me, stripping away my defenses and exposing my deepest fears. It was as if the entity could see into the darkest corners of my mind, unearthing secrets I had long buried. It was a malevolent entity, fueled by darkness and despair, a creature born of nightmares and sustained by the fear of the living. And it had chosen me as its plaything. I was at its mercy, a helpless pawn in a game of terror that I could not hope to win. The realization of my powerlessness only deepened my fear as I stood there, waiting for the inevitable. Section 8. The Cursed Artifact. My gaze fell upon an ornate silver locket lying on the dusty floor. It seemed out of place, as if it had been waiting for someone to discover it for centuries. It was tarnished with age, its once bright surface now dull and lifeless. The locket's silver sheen had long since faded, replaced by a patina that spoke of countless years of neglect and abandonment. Intricate carvings adorned its surface, depicting scenes of unimaginable horror and despair. Each line and curve told a story of suffering, etched by hands long gone. The craftsmanship was exquisite, yet the images were haunting. I felt an overwhelming urge to pick it up, to unlock its secrets. The locket seemed to call to me, whispering promises of hidden knowledge and power. My fingers itched to touch it, to feel its cold metal against my skin. But something held me back. A sense of dread washed over me, freezing me in place. It was as if an invisible force was warning me of the danger that lay within. A primal instinct warned me that the locket was not what it seemed. My heart pounded in my chest, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. The air around me grew heavy, thick with an unseen menace. It was a cursed artifact, a vessel of evil that fed on the fear and suffering of others. Legends spoke of such objects, relics imbued with dark magic, created to trap and torment souls. The locket was one of these, a beacon for malevolent forces. To touch it would be to invite unimaginable horror into my life. I knew that once I made contact, there would be no turning back. The locket would consume me, drawing me into its nightmarish world. I took a step back, my mind racing with the realization of the peril I had narrowly avoided. Section 9. The Ritual. This chapter delves into the dark and mysterious practices that have been whispered about for centuries, practices that many believe are better left forgotten. As I backed away from the locket, I noticed strange symbols etched into the floor. They seemed to pulse with an eerie energy, as if they were alive and watching me. They were arranged in a circular pattern, their lines glowing faintly in the darkness. The glow was not just light, it felt like it was reaching out, trying to pull me into its sinister embrace. I recognized them from ancient texts, forbidden tomes that spoke of summoning rituals and sacrifices made to appease dark entities. These books were hidden away, their pages filled with dark secrets and warnings of the consequences of dabbling in such forbidden knowledge. A wave of nausea washed over me as I realized the true nature of the room I had stumbled upon. It was as if the very air was poisoned with the remnants of past horrors, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. It was not a basement, but a chamber of horrors, a place where unspeakable acts had been committed in the name of power and forbidden knowledge. The walls seemed to whisper, telling tales of agony and despair, of souls lost to the darkness. And I was trapped within its cursed confines. The room seemed to close in on me, the shadows growing longer and darker, as if they were alive and hungry. There was no escape, no way out. I could feel the weight of the past pressing down on me, the echoes of screams and cries for mercy filling my ears. This was a place where hope had died, and I was its latest victim. Section 10. The Aftermath. I fled from that house, the screams of the damned echoing in my ears. The horrors I witnessed that night left an indelible mark on my soul, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks at the edge of our reality. I have never been the same.
The shadows whisper my name, their voices filled with malice and despair. They taunt me with glimpses of things unseen, of horrors yet to come. I am a prisoner in my own mind, haunted by the memories of that fateful night.
Section 11. A haunting reminder. The world is full of dark places, hidden corners where evil festers and nightmares come to life. We may try to ignore them, to pretend that they do not exist, but they are always there, lurking just beyond the veil of our perception. And sometimes, when we least expect it, the veil lifts, and we are forced to confront the terrifying truth that some things are best left undisturbed. The question is, are you brave enough to face the darkness, or will you succumb to the fear that consumes us all?